I'm going to script it, because if I script it, I will stick to time. So, I know you've been standing there for a while. I can do this in 7 minutes. You can time me, okay? So I know we're down to the sort of run to the litter. We've had the well-known influential people, whatever Morris may say, and now it's me talking about marketing. The way the world is going in marketing, and there's been so much written on this. I mean, anyone here in business, in marketing, business, and advertising, what on earth could we bring to the party that's new? Well, let me tell you what we're not going to talk about tonight. I'm not going to talk about tonight. I heard a marketing director recently, and they summed up the future of marketing as being able to order your favourite coffee brand using Google Glass and then have it delivered by drone. And another one, you'll be advertising to your fridge, because the fridge is going to decide when you've run out of something, when you need it, what brand you want. That's the future. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about programmatic. I'm not going to talk about data. I'm not going to talk about personalization. In fact, I'm not going to talk about technology at all, which, as we all know, in our business at the moment, that's almost a sin. To give a speech about the future and not talk about technology, but I'm not going to do that. I want to talk about psychology, because I think psychology is more important than technology in terms of the way the world is going. I'm going to talk about people, because it's people who are going to determine the way the world is going when it comes to marketing. And it's really, I think you may well agree that it's a misunderstanding of people that the Remainers and the Democrats got wrong. That's why they were so surprised, why we were so surprised, because we didn't really understand what was going on in people's minds. And our industry, fundamentally, the foundation of our industry and all the stuff that we make and we do is based on an accurate and deep understanding of people and what's going on in their minds. So I'm going to talk about people and their motivations. But not just any old people. I'm going to talk about a specific group of people. People born this century, slightly depressingly when you get to my age. The year of birth begins with a 2, for goodness sake. But anyway, I'm going to call them for the rest of this. They have different names. People have talked about them. They're the post-millennials, okay? That's what we're going to call them. I might call them post-millennials, PMs, or whatever throughout this. And I want to talk about them because the first thing is there's an awful lot of them. And Morris challenged this, but it's true. I got our so-called, not so-called, I got our intelligence unit. Sorry, that's so unfair. Tim, I'm sorry, Mike. God, be good at this one. I've got our intelligence unit to verify, and they're going to be a third of the world's population within a couple of years. So there's a lot of them, but that wasn't really the point. The reason we want to talk about them is because they're different. And I think they may be different to how you think they are. And they're different to millennials. And millennials have been researched more than any other generation in the history of the world. We all know about it. They've burnt into our mind that this is the future. But our report that we've conducted, I'm not going to go into detail, we have got propaganda to give you. We're an advertising agency. As you leave, you'll be given books about this thing, which you can reject and say, do send it to my office. But our report suggests that it's different to the conclusions other people have come to, and I think that about this generation of people, and I think maybe because assumptions have been made about them that thinks that it's just a straight line projection in terms of how generations progress. But generations don't progress. That's not the way generations work. They work in a sort of zigzag way. They rebound, they reject the previous generation. That's sort of the point. And that's what defines them, to an extent. And of course they're shaped by events, the events that you all know. And if you think about it, people born this century, they've been born into a sort of perma-crisis, really. From financial meltdown is what they know. Austerity, climate change, beyond the point of redemption. The failure of the establishment, terrorism, extremism, globalization, and lately, as you referenced before, the threat of nuclear war has come back. Just a chill. And then there's us, you, the parents, sitting there worrying about the organic food, putting in the stair gates, the buggies, the car seats and everything, just so they can survive in this oh-so-threatening and difficult world. And so what's the effect been? What's the effect of all of this stuff been on this new generation, a third of the world's population? Well, our research shows that it's actually produced a generation of sort of middle-aged teenagers. It's undermined the essence of what it means to be young, to be a teenager. They're actually, they're programmed, teenagers, to take risks. They have been in the past, to stay out late, to behave irresponsibly, but not the post-millennial. I mean, if this lot have a revolution, it's going to be incredibly quiet and sensible. I mean, they drink 40% less than we did in the 80s, and I'm not saying that, but they do. They've halved their intake of drugs, referring to the future, the previous point, apart from Ritalin. Because Ritalin, as some of you may know, that helps you concentrate when you're at school, in your revision, in your GCSEs, in your A-levels. That's up by almost 50% in 2 years. That's the drug of choice. So here's what I thought was a surprise. Well, in our industry, the talk recently, well, for the last 10 years, I would say, maybe longer, has been about connectivity and the power that people have, the optimism, the power we have to make the world a better place because the world is connected. And this reflects the sort of idealistic state of mind of millennials. But this generation isn't like that. They're about controlling risks, they manage threats, they want to feel secure. In our research, we did this in Hamburg, in London, and New York. And there was a teenager in Germany, their words stayed with me anyway. It says, what do I want from the future? I'd like a small house. I'd like a solid job. I'll never have a house in the lake in Hamburg or own a Porsche. So they're fully aware, this generation, that it's super competitive. It's super competitive for them now. They're told this every day. It's a global economy. You've got to compete with people in Korea. So they knuckle down, and all the data shows they think of pensions and savings. More than any other generation, the teenagers thinking of pensions and savings. I know there are people from the DWP here, which make a fantastic view. But... and they focus on what's likely and realistic. I mean, what's the point of dreaming? What's the point of dreaming if it's unreal? It's not going to happen. So their mantra, you could describe as, so just dream small. Think small. And this is before you take off the stabilisers. The stabilisers are high employment, low interest rates. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen, which I think many of us would suspect could take place over the next few years. So how long till it translates into a new individualism, a dawn of selfishness? In our report, we even suggest, could this be a dawn of a new Thatcher's grandchildren? A generation which is more about me and I than the millennials are, but possibly. So, okay, so what does this mean for marketing and advertising? This is a bit of a fool's game at this point, because we all remember the death of the 30-second TV commercial and how people predict these things. They're usually 180 degrees wrong. But anyway, here goes. Here's a few things in terms of marketing and advertising which we think is worth thinking about out of our report, which is for sale, it's not for sale, at the back of the book. In about 1947 actually, Dave Packard came up with the phrase noble purpose, the idea that if a company is going to survive, it needs to have a purpose in society over and above purely making money. That was the idea, a great idea. But perhaps in the search for the millennial dollar, it's been taken to extremes now. It really, every single brand and product has a social purpose over and above for the actual use that it was intended. So toilet cleaners exist. Their social purpose, to save the whale. Chocolate bars exist to promote social inclusion, which is perhaps fine for millennials, but for the PMs, it's just a little bit of a step too far. They want their companies and brands and institutions to stay closer to home, or they may do. That's our suggestion that's worth thinking about. So tell them what you're good at, what you do, and why. Because for them that might mean integrity, rather than doing good business around the world. Just being clear and realistic about your capabilities and your limitations. So if you think about it, the disaster of Pepsi wasn't that it was dreadfully done. It was just that it was completely and entirely pointless for this generation. Not just crass, but for them completely pointless. Now, I'm not saying that because we may have some clients in the room. Most clients' brands do have purposes. I don't want to be all leaders, because I'm not saying what we and you have done. We've been a great supporter of purpose over the years, and a noble purpose. But what we're saying is, this research would lead us to consider, that's fine, but let's look forward, and should we challenge our thinking in the past? Because if the last 12 months have taught us anything, it's that the unexpected can happen, and we should always be challenging our views of the past. Now, I literally can see some millennials twitching in the audience, and maybe, because it is a little bit uncomfortable, I can maybe feel, maybe I'm talking to myself, some parents thinking, how dare you tell me that I've brought up some middle-aged teenager who's dreaming small, and I'm sorry about that. But I think for an interesting question for us, for brands and companies, is you can go two ways on this, I think. You can accept that this is the case, this is the way the world is going, this is what they're like, and what you need to do is not fight it. Get into their heads, get into this space, and talk differently to people. Or you could choose, because we've talked to a few people and clients about this, and actually in our book we say this, it's a malaise. I'm not sure I agree with this, but let's just go with it. You can go with it, or you say it's a malaise, and we need to do something about it. We need to help this new generation of people. We talk about, in our report, that these post-millennials, they're losing the joy of learning. They won't do a job unless it's good on their CV. What's the point of philosophy? What's the point of ancient history? How can you win with ancient history in the modern world? So should we, or indeed brands, be putting dreams back into their lives, make them feel it's okay to daydream, give them back their innocence, tell them not to just to worry less, enjoy more, it's okay, you don't need to know what your job is going to be when you're 14. Or do you go with the flow? We need to make the choice. I have a view. I'm not going to have a view now. I was going to, but I've sensed the audience would be against it. Go with the flow. But anyway, look, just to conclude, I think one thing we can be certain about from all the research that we've done with this generation is that they want us, the marketing and advertising community, to get to the point. They really want us to get to the point. They want us to distill, separate the wheat from the chaff, because they need to get on and compete. They're aware it's a competition. They need to get on and compete, and they want to survive. Now, some of you, I know, will be standing in the audience saying, well, that sounds quite familiar. Because when we started this company 22 years ago, it was these three principles up here, actually. It was ownership. It's good to have ownership. People care more. We have independence, fewer rules, and we found it on brutal simplicity of thought. And the greatest of those three is brutal simplicity of thought. The idea that in politics, actually, in business as well, and in general, and advertising, it's easier to complicate than to simplify. And we need simple ideas. We know this mantra. All of us have to repeat it before you go to bed. Simple ideas enter the brain quicker and stay there longer. So brutal simplicity of thought is a painful necessity. That's what we started it on. Now, I will stop short of saying, because it really would be crass to say that the way the world is going is M&C Saatchi. Morris would approve of that, of course. But I think it's reasonably well placed, especially with the brutal simplicity of thought and getting to the point. And finally, I think that was about 8 minutes. And finally, I would almost like to apologise for the commercial that I just delivered at the end of the little talk. But on the other hand, I'm not going to apologise, because we are an advertising agency and that's what we do. So thank you very much for being here this evening. And do eat, drink and be merry. Thank you very much, obviously, to John and Ian for being here, especially incredibly busy time for both of you. So that was great. Thank you for being here. Do pick up the propaganda if you want on the way out and enjoy yourself, whatever generation you are. Thanks for coming.